everybody. It's a very, very great pleasure to welcome you all here to the George Bernard Shaw Theatre at Visual. And could we have dreamt up better weather? So it's just brilliant. You can sense already the atmosphere is fantastic, and we're going to have a fantastic 2 days together full of chat and energy and vision and ideas. So very, very warm welcome to you. And also to everybody who's joining us online, you're equally welcome here. So I'm Maureen Kennelly, I'm the Director of the Arts Council, and together with our colleagues from the local government, we're thrilled and excited to be here for our third conference, Places Matter, where we're going to look at how we invest creatively in people and places. And I should say it's the first, I think, large gathering post-COVID, or as we're coming out of COVID. So it's just terrific. I think the last one maybe that I was aware of was in February 2020 in Limerick, which was the Changemakers conference about festivals, which I'm sure many of you were at. So it's just brilliant to be gathered together again, and we'll all have time to reflect on what we've all been through and how well we've done. So particularly fantastic to be here with everybody. So this conference comes under our framework for collaboration agreement with local government. And the first one, which I'm sure many of you were at, talked about what happens when we invest in the arts. In the second, we looked at building inclusion in the arts, and this time we're exploring people, places, and the arts. And over the past 2 years, of course, we've learned, and we continue to learn more about the value of the places where we live. It's never been more important to us as we clung closely to our local environment. We've been connecting with our neighbours and communities in ways that are meaningful and joyful like never before, and never have they been more necessary in our lives. The expansion of our Creative Places programme is an important shift in how we work and who we reach, and especially in places that have previously not had opportunities to benefit from sustained investment in the arts and creativity. And our journey in investing in people and places, of course, began in our 10-year strategy, Making Great Artwork, with which you're well familiar, I think, at this stage. And as you'll probably know, at the heart of that strategy is a vision for the arts in Ireland, and it's one that's grounded in a sense of people and of place, where the arts are truly valued as a vital feature of our daily lives, and where ambitious and innovative artists are supported to make works of excellence. We're going to hear more about that very shortly. And Creative Places and our spatial policy, which will be launched tomorrow morning by our Minister, Catherine Martin, they're both key components of that vision. And while we were establishing a process to set up Creative Places, in Carlow here, great work was already underway. In 2017, Take Apart Carlow was an initiative of Carlow County Council, and that was funded through the Invitation to Collaboration scheme. And that programme has gone from strength to strength under the guiding hand of Sinead Dowling and Aileen Nolan here in Carlow County Council. And I'd like to congratulate you and all your team for your vision, your determination and your openness of spirit to work side by side with the community on exploring what deeply matters to them in their daily lives. And as you came in here, the reflections that you were experiencing are the voices of people from Tullow Road, and they serve as a reminder of what we do and why we do it. And I'm so particularly delighted to see so many people from Carlow here with us this afternoon. In 2020, as many of you know, we launched the pilot Creative Places programme in Tuam, and last year we were thrilled to add 8 new places to that family. So in Bagnallstown, again here in Carlow, Athy, Edenderry, Darndale, the West Cork Islands, Shannon, the Ivory Peninsula and Tala. And next week we have another closing date where we'll be adding new places to that growing family. Our investment in each of these places would not be possible without each respective local authority. They're core and critical to our strategic public sector partners. And again, just to mention, tomorrow we're going to be launching our spatial policy. We're all extremely excited about that at the Arts Council. My colleague Monica Corcoran and her team have done fantastic work in this policy. And that new policy is an emphatic shift from us in the Arts Council to the notion of a people and place-centred approach and towards achieving what we're calling better socio-spatial equity. And we look forward so much to working with you all in achieving that. And essentially, the policy offers a very simple vision, and that's where we hope we'll speak to everybody with that vision for a country where everyone has the opportunity to create, to engage with, to participate in, and to enjoy the arts and culture regardless of who they are or where they live, where they work. Our investment in the Creative Places programme would not be possible without Create, the National Development Agency for Collaborative Arts, who've been delivering Creative Places Tuam and who are now working with us on a new national network of creative places. Their work, as you'll know, initiates cross-sectoral national and international partnerships. They support artists and communities to co-create works of depth, of ambition and of excellence. And they fit between their strategic ambitions, and our Creative Places programme has been absolutely essential to its development. And I'd like to acknowledge the terrific work of Alva Murphy and her team in ensuring the success both of the pilot programme and this new network of places. We're thrilled to work with you and your team. And I wanted to say that in particular, Carolann Courtney, whom you'll meet shortly, who's now back on the ground in Tuam, she has so capably and with imagination progressed the programme when she could not actually be in place, and as well as helping us initiate the new national network. So thank you so much, Carolann, for all your brilliant work. And shortly, Carolann, alongside David and Joanna and Patricia and Grainne, will share with you the 2 years that have already been experienced in Tuam. So I'm very, very much looking forward to hearing those reflections and contributions. That first hour on Tuam will be live streamed, and then the second hour is in a workshop format for all those who wish to take a deeper dive into creative and collaborative place-based arts investment. So between today and tomorrow, we have a full programme. We have over 50 speakers taking part in 15 sessions. I'm extremely grateful to my team, the Arts Council, who have given so imaginatively and selflessly to this conference. And I know that none of my colleagues will mind if I single out Sinead O'Reilly for mention this afternoon, because she has given of herself with her usual grace and courtesy and energy, and I'm in awe of her boundless energy. So thank you so much to Sinead and to all the team for your tremendous work. Tomorrow, I'm really looking forward to our keynote speakers, Valerie Mulvin and Emmanuel Pratt. And Valerie will be looking at the context of Irish towns based on her fascinating recent book. And Emmanuel will talk to us about the importance of our human infrastructure, and he'll remind us that people make places, as we all know. Emmanuel's live chat at 3:20 tomorrow will be of real interest to those involved in the Creative Places programme, and that will be hosted by Alva Murphy. So we have very rich conversations ahead over the next few days. Again, I'm thrilled to see you all here. Many of us who lived in Ireland in the first phase of lockdown became very well acquainted with the Derek Mahon poem, "Everything is going to be all right." But in thinking about this conference in the last few days, I was reminded of his poem, "A Disused Shed" in County Wexford. And the first line of that goes, "Even now there are places where a thought might grow." So this is a place where thoughts of boundless imagination will grow and will go out into the world. So thank you so much for joining us, and it's a very great pleasure now to hand you over to Carolann Courtney.
Thank you. Thank you, Maureen, for that welcome, and thank you everyone for being with us here for the session, Making Community and Creating Place. To settle us in, I'm going to ask the amazing tech team to play Joanna McGlynn's Reflection. And here you'll be brought through the landscape and geography of Tuam, for those who don't know it. And it'll just give us a few moments to kind of settle in and listen to an artist from Tuam's reflection on the work so far. So, thank you.
Tuam. 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 I am Tuam. My Tuam. My Tuam is built on a foundation of childhood memories of school and summer holidays. It's sitting in the back of a mustard Volkswagen Beetle, hearing the purring engine driving up the lawn and the soft sound of long meadow grass gently brushing its underbelly. It's playing with cousins on the railway line, pressing our faces against the rusted tracks, stretching our ears to hear the sound of an approaching train. It's memories of sucking sickly sweet push pops while waiting on the platform in Ballyglunin for a steam train to arrive. It's ham sandwiches on brown bread in a basket with butter and chef sauce. It's spring onions pulled from the back garden dipped in salad cream, lettuce, tomato, 2 slices of rolled ham on a china plate, potatoes, fig rolls, red lemonade. It's the welcome warmth of a turf-fired range in winter and summer. It's the familiar click of a kettle going on the boil. It's gathering around fires, sharing news, telling stories, visiting. My Tuam is a hinterland, a home from home in the heart of my mother's homeland, Crumlin, Ballyglunin. My Tuam is a place of belonging, a feeling deeply evoked by the presence of generational footprints etched on the land. It's dry stone walls and hawthorns in bloom in May. It's over a railway, under a railway bridge, past the new school and the pumps at Ryan's. My Tuam is a collection of daily experiences. It's saying yes to a proposal on the top of Knockma. It's bon dia in the morning, bon noche at night. It's going into town on a Friday and catching the market down Brown's Lane. It's as much about the chat as it is the fresh, locally grown organic vegetables, home-baked breads, willow witch and free-range pasture-grazed pork. Going home with my wares, maybe into O'Toole's to pick up a few bits, or little for the big shop. New Harmony to fuel my latest health ad and parks when I'm looking for that something and I'm not sure what it is, but I know I'll find it in there when I see it. It's breakfast in Leaf and Bean, followed by a stroll to the library, maybe a book, or maybe catch an exhibition in the foyer. It's Viennese fingers from the cake box, if I'm lucky, shared over cuppa with a friend or neighbour. It's Orange, the handmade chocolate shop. It's the sound of kids playing in the park and families on bicycles. It's young people hanging in closed doorways, laughing, dreaming, all talk about their futures. COVID happened. The market ceased trading, the cake box closed down, the library doors shut to the public, and Leaf and Bean went click and collect. Young people still gathered in doorways, laughing, dreaming, all talk about their futures. COVID happened, but something else happened too. Since Creative Places came to town, my Tuam is all this and more. My Tuam is curious. It's reading the announcement of 20 seed funding recipients in the social media channels of a national resource organisation and realising this is happening in Tuam, my Tuam. Delighting knowing that throughout the hinterland and studios and workshops, through communities and collaboration, there's a network of practitioners experimenting, making and producing. The announcement is followed by news feeds of new websites launched, podcasts released, musicians recording, craft fairs continuing, and suddenly the seeds are growing, the creative endeavours of a community supported, made visible, taking root. I am witnessing a place being held. That's the privilege Creative Places has honoured Tuam with, holding a space, deeply believing in a place and its people. In this sense, Creative Places is for me a presence, an enigma of sorts. Creative Places moves through you, it's in you, it's of you, it's of place. In many ways, it's hard to imagine without a physical space or building to identify with, which in itself challenges institutional norms about how creativity and the arts are supported. Yet somehow the fluidity of the framework and relational methods maintain this holding space, even in a pandemic. From a personal level, it's feeling supported to find my voice again. It's being listened to and being heard. It's feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's an invitation to host a breakout room as part of Create's infamous networking day. It's sharing my reflections with you today. It's belonging to a community of practice with identified shared interests, working in unison. It's a virtual meeting with collaborating artists in France. It's the fresh promise of a newly formed artist collective. It's a journey of discovery, a walk and wood audio tour to hidden spaces, experiencing place through others. It's little John Nee performing on the platform at Ballygoonan Station for Culture Night. It's following a community trail of scarecrows and witches, ghosts and ghouls, and a night walk by torch to see a ruined house illuminated for Halloween. It's Eugene's light sculptures on top of Knockcrow. It's just the right amount of balance, acknowledging what's already there, while providing nourishment to breathe, experiment with new ways to learn or unlearn. Creative Places is momentum. While the mill wheels may have stopped turning, the river still flows. Place is our commons, culture our differences, and creativity binds us. My Tuam, this Tuam, is a place of possibility. My Tuam is past, present, and most definitely my future.
So thank you to Joanna for sharing that with us, and I hope it's kind of situated us all together in this room, but also in Tuam. So Creative Places Tuam is a cultural pilot programme for the people of Tuam, initiated and funded by the Arts Council of Ireland and managed and developed by Create, as you've heard Maureen speak to earlier. Launched in January 2020, initially Create had worked 14 days on site before the pandemic struck, and over 21 months remotely with the communities that make up Tuam. In this time, these communities have consistently engaged with the Creative Places programme, supporting the work and actively shaping its direction. We are grateful that we have David McDonagh, Joanna McGlynn, Patricia King Callaghan, who will be zooming in for the panel, here with us today to speak further. With a budget of $375,000, we have 3 years to pilot a socially engaged and collaborative practice-based programme, anchored by Galway County Council Arts Service. Our time so far has concentrated on building relationships and the capacity of our collaborators, as well as adding value to the rich cultural infrastructure that exists in Tuam. We are delighted to be here with you at this key moment in time to share our reflections. As we wondered, we being our Tuam made up of Create, Tuam, myself, Galway County Council, our local creative team, and all our collaborators to date, on how to present our work today, we discussed how best to show what has been done and our ambitions for what's next. We thought about how to tell the story of Creative Places Tuam so far. We asked ourselves questions like, how do we tell you about all the cups of tea? Our shorthand for meetings, planning and scheming. How do we tell you about the slowing of pace, of holding place, as mentioned in Joanna's reflection? Staying together, even though we were in different counties at the same time, Dublin, Cork, Galway, Carlow, for months. How do we talk about Zoom meetings and gatherings, emails, phone calls, handwritten letters, voice notes, WhatsApp messages? How we used every means at our disposal to keep everything and everyone together. And now, after all that time at a remove, to speak to the energy of being in the room together, talking about relationships, seeing where networks develop. How do we talk about who the custodians and keepers of this pilot's legacy will be? Structures of ownership and power. How do we talk about discoveries that will come from this work? These are the foundations on which the programme is being built. I wanted to use the methodology of practice the town gave us. I wanted to tell you a story. So taking my lead from Joanna, before we move into the panel, I'd like to share my own reflections. Our first weeks of walking the town introduced us to Tuam to see the choreography of the town day to day. From our base in the town hall, we see how school children move in great swarms of navy green, maroon and grey, depending on the gates and times of their exits. The tribes of colours connecting all nationalities to the town for learning. We see the ebb and flow of drop-off and pick-ups, the impacts this has in getting in or out of SuperValu car parks, at home time, or grabbing a cup of coffee in the morning at the start of the school day. We watch from windows and see the impact of the tidal wave of hinterland factory workers descending on the eateries of the town at lunchtime. The sound and colour of people socialising in the town hotels, restaurants and pubs in the evening, hearing Tuam Sham alongside the many accents of the world. We walk and we see streets both teeming with life and lying idle. We see locked gates and open doors, historic sites and future town plans. We walk and we encounter new people, future comrades and collaborators. We walk and we talk. We talk about what was and the hopes of what will be. We walk and talk and listen to a new story, the same story, told anew and again, until the composite image builds up for us and the complexity of place become apparent. Then we start to settle in. We settle in coffee shops, kitchen tables, temporary meeting rooms, hotel foyers, leaning against a wall or a very particular blue door, and we are stopped at the traffic lights. And there we start to talk about possibilities and plans. The town is our inspiration. My reflections from this time ruminate on holding space for the idea we can't conceive of yet, saying yes, saying no, and managing expectations. Seeing the town primed into action, understanding the momentous opportunity that this is. Tuam knowing what they want, but being so open to listen to what we create can offer. With deep listening, we started connecting into this new place. When COVID ruptured the work, we continued, but in a very different manner. The work and learning grew and evolved as it needed. Ensuring that we stayed connected and grow our relationships, we used the local paper as a way of getting our message out. Nearly 200 one-to-ones, mentorship sessions and support meetings via Zoom in our first 22 months. 10 training and information sessions that ranged from digital skills development, arts funding and programme resource supports, and project development workshops supported 138 artists and 38 local community groups from Tuam and the region. We awarded 3 Tuam bursaries for artists to adapt their collaborative practice in this time of massive change. 20 seeding awards funded community groups, volunteers and clubs to find ways to keep going together. And today we see the energies and momentum from these investments continue to grow. Whilst you need to lean into experience of the tried and tested, we also learn to be open, flexible and responsive to the new, to the unexpected when building relationships. You learn the importance of saying yes, to get out of the way of the good idea and to journey with them, to help, to pitch in and support where needed. We put out a call for a major cooperative commission in April 2021. Detailed applications came from the immediate locale and further afield, and while they each in their own way offered potential momentum for the programme and provided great energy over 2 days of vital and rigorous debate and conversation, the decision was made by the panel not to award the commission. This was a hard decision to make, but the right one nonetheless. This was an invaluable learning opportunity, and we recalibrated our thinking. It has allowed us to adjust and create the Cooperative Ignition programme, a new entity within our programme framework that creates a responsive space for invited artists with collaborative arts practices to be with us in Tuam, to nurture both emerging and established artists from the region, to scope out the potential for social and community enterprise. It is here that Tuam-based artist Jojo Hines and Mighty Corkin will work with artist Kate O'Shea, that the artist and researcher Isabel Lima will explore town regeneration plans with residents. It is in this Cooperative Ignition programme that the artist Mark Storer will commence a research project with Gilmartin Road, and the filmmaker David McDonagh, who's here with us today, will visually respond to the town, its people and the surrounding areas of Tuam. We centre traveller culture in this space. You can see it in our Ori style with Megs Morley, Oni Ward and Owen de Vardoon on Nomadic Archives. And look out for the next episode where we see Owen once more, this time in conversation with David and Maggie Farrell on their art practice and creative process and how it has both influenced and influences traveller culture and heritage. We are working with Galway County Council and the OPW to support and bring young people together to take the lead. A custodian residency formulated to continue from this project to work with schools, youth services and community groups to offer the children and young people the chance to make decisions, to contribute to a plan of what the future of this place could be. In our 2 years, a repository of lived experiences, critical dialogues, cultural theory and idea creation as a foundational practice has been activated by this programme with our partners in Tuam. As things don't land 100% as we expected, we know to lean into the expertise of the people who live here, who work here, our critical friends and stakeholders, to hold on to the ambitions of their visions and readjust the offering to make it happen. Be reactive to happenings, diverge our thinking when needed, whilst being proactive in planning and holding on to our aims. We're committed to standing firm and absolute when advocating for what's right. We keep a clear eye on the non-negotiables to manage expectations on what we have ambitions for versus what's achievable, what can be done and what we hope will be. We push back on the idea of the venue of one space that the programme should deliver, inspired by the Scottish initiative Devon Arts, whose motto is "The town is the venue." It's important to be honest and say, if it's an arts venue, and if an arts venue is your benchmark for success, we will not meet your expectations at this time. We also understand why these particular requests and needs are important to the residents, artists and creatives, makers and business owners. We listen to what was let go, what is missed and what is wanted. You learn to be attuned to how this place is spoken about, how it's used, where it's placed by others. You learn to defend it, to want to push back on media stereotyping, which makes it the shortcut for national trauma, loss, and institutional legacy. You learn the patience needed for place, to straddle the multiplicity and complexity of communities, the importance of holding the space for critical conversations to be had. Creating our Ori-style series of fireside conversations allowed us to situate civic conversations at the hearth of Tuam musician Pádraig Stevens, himself an important figure in the rich cultural landscape of the town and key community advocate for our work. He's a name that was mentioned time and time again during our initial research, now providing a place for us to gather. As I close out this reflection, I want to acknowledge the huge difficulties the pilot overcame during COVID. Overcoming the hurdle of how to stand firm when everything is changing, how to care from afar. We as a programme asked, how could we be relevant to people in place when the world is in crisis? But we were shown immediately, straight from the off, how important this programme is, weren't we? Living within our 2-kilometre radius showed us how vital our places are. Our streets, green spaces, town centres, hinterlands, sea vistas, promenades, back gardens, parks, whatever is on your doorstep. So the pilot reinforced what we knew intuitively, the centrality of place, the importance of investing in the already existing creativity at local level, how connected we are, how vital a Creative Places programme can become. We have made rich connections with artists, creatives, residents who are interested and invested in this work. But we also acknowledge that we are only now in a position to open up more and connect with the wider community. If the programme is to be held in the town, the hinterlands and homes of Tuam residents, we need to and will do more to grow our partnerships and develop numerous opportunities to ensure all those who live in Tuam can engage with the programme meaningfully. Whether that is via a residency to work with an artist, or being funded via a grant, to be part of the audience or take the lead, to attend a community gathering or receive a poem in the post, to watch it unfold on social media or lead out on it on the ground. I have learned the pluralities of people and place mean we have to offer opportunities to everyone and no one, to nurture who we have in the room with us whilst always ensuring the door is open for more to cross over our threshold. The lifting of restrictions allows us to be back in Tuam and to be together. The excitement is something else. Personally, it has been a great privilege to lead out on the programme. I've learned to listen and come to love the music, poems, stories and songs made because of this very particular place. Thank you for listening to my midway reflection, even though we are just getting started. I'm going to now introduce you to the panel. So, thank you. Can everyone hear me? Oh, okay, I'll go back. Yeah, great. Thank you to our panel for being with us here today. It's now my pleasure to bring our wonderful panel into the discussion, and Patricia McKenna should be coming in too. I can see Patricia. Hello, welcome Patricia.
Hi, Carolann.
This is great. So it's now. I want to give a warm welcome to David, Grainne, Joanna, and Patricia. We have with us here an important cross-section of the team we are building relationships with. Our collaborators, residents, community members, artists, evaluators, and our critical friends and anchor points to place. I'm going to give a brief read into everyone. Grainne is a researcher, Grainne Coughlan, wave, is a researcher focused on socially engaged arts practices. In 2021, Grainne and Create received an Enterprise Partnership postdoctoral award from the Irish Research Council to develop a new evaluation framework for socially engaged art. Supported by TU Dublin, this research project will propose a new lexicon for evaluation, which will be informed by and tested on Creative Places Tuam. Patricia, with us, who's coming in via Zoom, is a native of Tuam. Patricia is involved in voluntary and community groups such as the Old Tuam Society and the Marion Coral Society. Patricia founded Tuam, which is Young Tuam, an inclusive programme of environmental and community engagement work for children and young people. It hosts seasonal events and participates in the annual Crinún and Og and Culture Night celebrations. Welcome, Patricia. David McDonagh is an emerging filmmaker and Tuam native. After a number of years in working in a healthcare environment and seeing the extraordinary efforts of ordinary people, he was inspired to pick up a camera and document the world around him, to look for the magnificent in the mundane. David joined the Creative Places Tuam creative team in 2021 as a videographer, and he's excited about the opportunity of creating content and capturing images, ideas and interesting individuals that make Tuam a town like no other. Joanna McGlynn is a socially engaged arts practitioner based in Dublin. She develops context-specific projects in response to the immediate physical environment with a sensitivity to communities of people, place and interest. Projects are realised through process of participation, co-creation and collaboration. So welcome everybody, thank you for being with us today. I'm going to ask everyone on the panel, I'm going to ask Patricia, David and Patricia in particular about how your experience with Creative Places Tuam has changed your relationship with the town or your area. So Patricia, would we bring you in first?
Yeah, no problem. I'd just like to apologise for not being there in person. Thank you anyway for having me. Creative Places is probably the most positive programme that has ever really come into the town. It's all about binding for me. I was born in Tuam, I've lived in Tuam and worked in Tuam all my life. And when I say binding, I mean it brings people together physically and culturally. And to give an example of that, as I'm a volunteer with different groups, Creative Places supported financially but also gave us advice on a mural on a busy thoroughfare in the town. So that involved a collaboration between a local group, Tuam Tidy Towns, the artists and musicians. So because of that, Creative Places created a connection for our group to liaise with and kind of build a bridge with artists and musicians so that we can actually work together in the future. So that's what Creative Places did for me personally. And Creative Places, as I said, is very positive, but it's making the town more inviting for citizens, because Carolann is there on site. She's given us support, advice, explaining opportunities for artists, individuals and community groups. She's telling us all about those things that are available. So it's a very, very positive initiative that has come into the town, because as you know, the town is a disadvantaged town, but this is definitely one of the most positive things that has ever happened. Thank you.
That was a great way to open the panel. I did that on purpose. Thank you, Patricia. Joanna, I'm going to ask you the same question.
How do I follow that?
Exactly.
So how has Creative Places sort of changed my interaction? I guess I moved to Tuam in 2017. And I would have had a strong family connection. My mum's originally from Tuam. So for me, it was really about becoming like embedded in the community of Tuam. And I guess, you know, what Creative Places did is opened some doors. And I mean, that's like in quite a casual sense, in the sense of like the social evenings that you've held and through Zoom, online meetings. It's like the opportunity to meet other creatives and artists who are living and working in the area, who I may have been like familiar with the work, like Dave, I'd seen your work, but I'd never actually met David. And so it was those kind of opportunities. And then, you know, like living in and working in place, I think, you know, that became really heightened during the pandemic, that sort of sense of place and location and working within a smaller radius. So that's something I think that's become really important. And Creative Places has definitely created opportunities where I now can say, yes, I am working in Tuam, like through the OPW project, and also then through, you know, some other arts investments as well, like creative schools as well. Like I'm also working in the hinterland areas in schools in those areas. So it's definitely like embedding my sense and my contribution like to a community as well. So
Right,
yeah.
And David, I know your practice, your filmmaking practice is very embedded in the topography of Tuam as well. So we were all wearing different hats in terms of being a resident and a creative practitioner from the town, but how has Creative Places impacted your connection with the town?
It gave me a great opportunity to grow, I think, as an artist, but as a person as well, because I got to look at people differently. I made a short film about the mill in Tuam, and it's a beautiful location, and there's a lot going on there. Patricia is heavily involved with it, but it's also a location for people to abuse drink and other stuff as well. So I got to spend some time with those people and turn it into a piece of art. So it made me kind of look at those people differently, and it made, well, not differently, I suppose, maybe with more depth. And it gave me the opportunity as well to show those people to the public and give them a voice. I remember Leo from the Saw Doctor said that to me, he sent me a message. And he said, you know what was really good about that was you give them a voice. So it gave me a lot of growth as a person, big time, you know, which is always good for your art. Yeah, and another case as well, worked with an individual who worked in the prison service for 20 years or so, and he suffered from PTSD. And no one really kind of listened to him. He's kind of he can be a kind of because of the condition, I suppose, he can be kind of, I don't know, it can be a person that maybe can clash with people, but he's a nice guy. But it gave me, when I told his story in a film, I felt that he's understanding that the person that gave him a voice was a traveller. There was something huge about that. He was like, no one listened and no one spoke to me and no one wanted to tell my story, but it was a traveller that did it. And I think there was great healing in that. I don't exactly know what that means, but it means something big, you know, and something as well that made me think about that. I was like, oh, these other people in the town, they don't have to be travellers, but these other people who I can tell their story, and there's a healing in that, because unfortunately perception is reality with everything, and people kind of had a stereotype about you sometimes when you're a traveller, so it gives you an opportunity to completely destroy that, you know.
That's great.
So yeah,
Thank
so
you,
I think that's
David.
probably it.
And I think just to acknowledge as well, we're not here with definitive answers, that we are on a journey together and being in process together. So we're here to kind of maybe share the thinking as opposed to give, there is no full stop at this. I'm going to bring Grainne in now, and Grainne is our evaluator, and I just want to kind of link in with you, and maybe can you possibly kind of discuss the process of the evaluation that's happened so far?
Yeah, sure. So as you described earlier on, the evaluation of Creative Places Tuam is situated within the larger context of Irish Research Council funded postdoc, where we're going to try and develop a new evaluative register for socially engaged art. And sort of the aim, I guess, of this project is to create an evaluation framework or register that responds to the particularities of the practice, which, you know, like I think just listening from Trish and Joanna and Dave here, you only kind of draw out when you're really embedded, I guess, in that context. So at the moment, we're looking at bringing out these kind of stories and reflective moments as part of an evaluation rather than just administrative criteria alone. And I guess that's not to say anything against you know, like how we quantify projects with numbers, but that you can get a much more real in-depth experience of a project from the outside. So at the moment, I have loosely come up with a framework which is looking at the project holistically. A lot of the time, evaluation takes place at the end of a project, and we spend a lot of time looking back and trying to see what's happened. So this is sort of broken up into different phases of pre-production, which is all of the organisation and management and contributions from stakeholders who are involved in the project. And this is something that I'm really interested in. As Carolann well knows, I haven't stopped talking about the idea of the politics of preparatory phases, and basically how do we set up the conditions for people to engage in whatever way that is in a project like Creative Places. And then looking at the production, so what kinds of activities are happening, how people are engaging. And here I think it's really important to drill down into that and sort of look at the quality of the relationships developed as well as the quantity of those engagements. And then afterwards, we want to look at, well, what kind of legacies are left here? What's the trace of Creative Places Tuam left in the city? What kind of capacity building has taken place? So that sort of sums it up, I guess, for the moment.
Well, kind of taking on from that thread, Grainne, I'd like to ask everybody on the panel then, before we kind of open questions from the floor, but thinking about exactly that, the legacy of Creative Places Tuam, what would your wishes be for it? And Patricia, I might go to you with that question. What your
No problem. Creative Places at the moment is making Tuam very unique, and I believe that it's creating a new culture of equality and inclusion. Through my community work, there are 60 families from India who have relocated to Tuam for a few years. They're working in a local engineering company called Valio. And they really want to get to know the locals and the culture and the food and that. So because of Creative Places, the programmes such as the Tuam Craft Fair that I'm involved in, we used to do one annually. But because of Creative Places, we actually do one summer one and now 3 Christmas ones. Because what happened was Creative Places gave us the support and the advice about how to conduct the craft fair in a professional manner. And all these young artists and people from India came along and said, well, we want to take part as well. So it was fantastic to have a really diverse craft fair every year. So we're having a few of those every year. So because of that, I think that Creative Places is helping everyone to be kind of like inclusive and everything is equal, you know. So I think it's fantastic for people who have relocated, and also especially for those young and upcoming artists. Some of them are only teenagers or just out of school. They're being given an opportunity through craft fairs that we organise to showcase their wares. It's not just for monetary, values or anything. It's really just to showcase their talent and that. And I think the legacy that Creative Places, it's because it's given us experiences and to get the youth involved. It's making it really more of an attractive town to like the residents and the visitors. And when Creative Places finishes, well, I definitely will with local community groups. We'll continue on the legacy. We'll keep continuing on with the craft fairs and the exhibitions and the workshops to keep the youth involved because they need that. They're the next generation. So I think the legacy is all about, it's kind of providing forming a platform now for the youth and the next generation. So hopefully it'll continue on, you know.
That's great, Patricia. Thank you. Joanna, I might go to you again.
The legacy.
Yeah. What's the wish list?
The wish list. Well, I think that a shared understanding for, even the idea of creativity, that Creative Places is for everyone. And it's the arts, but it's so much more. And within that space, for bringing like difference and bringing just different community together, but also across, so you're bringing your businesses, you're bringing your arts, you're bringing community, and you're creating like a platform that in turn enhances the community in your town and its infrastructure. So I think just seeing that, like that kind of it's the slow build, I think I would say, and it's through those sort of slow steps that things take root, and that I guess if you want to think of the idea when Creative Places leaves Tuam, but I think it's, there's a residue left, and that its success will be continued through the work of those who are still living there. So
thank you. And David, I might bring the legacy question to you now.
It's probably a big one, but there's socio-economic issues in Tuam that religion and politics seems to not really they haven't made much ground with. There's a lady in the crowd who I'm making a film with recently, I'm currently making a film, I'm editing now actually, and I was interviewing a lady from my street, and there has been an awful lot of arson attacks in Tuam recently, and a car was set alight. So I rang 999, rushed outside, made a phone call. When I knew everything was all right, I documented the incident, and I'm hoping to put it in the film. But my own personal experience from the way people interact with me now through art is that change, it flipped on its head instantly, overnight almost, because of a couple of photos and because of a couple of films. And so I'm hoping that through art, I can do something. Like, there's a lot of people who can't coexist, they can't be in the same room, they can't be in the same location. But if you make a film and you put those people in that film together, and the film ends up in a festival and it's put before a crowd and it's celebrated, I think kind of subconsciously it can kind of slip in. Art hits people different than everything else. I don't know what it is, I don't know how to quantify it, but I'm hoping that it can diffuse a lot of issues that are in Tuam. I'm not even hoping, to be honest, I know it can, because I've seen it. But so that'd be it. I think it can do huge things to address a lot of the issues that are in my community and outside my community as well. And if it could do that, that's huge, because the fallout from that is huge for everybody.
That's great, David. Thank you. And Grania, I think, asking this question to you is a bit unfair because, you just spoke to it being the journey. But when you speak to like the good components of the components of good evaluation and, in terms of your perspective of being on site and Tuam with us over the last number of months, like what would your, ambition for the legacy be?
Yeah, I guess in terms of legacy, I'd love to see the production and sort of, I guess, universality and the evidencing of an evaluation framework that sort of responds to sort of 5 principles, I guess, that I am generating about evaluation through the engagement with Tuam. So, I could probably talk about these for an hour and a half, but very, very quickly. I guess in the first place, that evaluation would be seen as a durational component of socially engaged art projects in general, meaning that, as I described beforehand, it's taken place from the very beginning, from the moment that these projects are conceived and being discussed, as a way that we can address the conditions of engagement, those politics of preparatory phases, and also to interrogate what people's expectations are from the very beginning. Secondly, I'd love to see evaluation that is much more distributed around all the different people that engage with a project. You've just heard here, I guess, how many people are engaging in multiple different ways. So I'm trying to think about how do I get all of those voices, I guess, on board. So we're doing that at the moment through, different workshops. I just completed a diagrammatic elicitation workshop where we drew out the relationships that we have sort of made or hope to make through this project. Thirdly, I guess that evaluation would be reflexive and reflective. And I guess in that way, I mean that we would be cognizant of the political aspects, the social aspects, the cultural aspects, which Dave has talked so well about here. And that has to be at the core of evaluation, so that it brings us into evaluation being embedded, I guess, within a process. And then I think, lastly, and this is maybe, I guess, for me more than Tuam in a sense, that the aspects of evaluation and the tools required to do that will be forefronted. So what I found is that it requires an awful lot of analysis on different things, coming up with different ways of engaging with people. Perhaps one way is through a workshop, perhaps another way is through a longer interview process. But that these could be identified as needs of the sector so that we can have learning coming from evaluation rather than evaluation as a tick the box.
Great, thank you. So I'd like to open up to the floor to see if there's any questions that people might have for any of the panel members. Yes, hello.
Hi, my question is the project for the community, the artist, or the area as a sense? Because we've heard a lot from the artist, but not from the community. So yeah, my question is it for me, because I'm from a small town and I was a very creative person and in a not such creative environment. So is this for the artists who are already present in Tuam and have practices? Is it for the public to engage with the art? Is it to encourage people and teach people that this is a viable profession? Because it's very interesting to listen to the artists speaking, but there's nobody to talk to what it's like being a person in Tuam, seeing this working around you, feeling engaged by it. So would I be able to speak to that?
Yeah, well, I think it's everything. To what you asked there, it's both for people to engage with how they feel like, and I think when we look at place, we wear multiple hats every day depending on our connection to it. So everyone here is resident to Tuam. Some are emerging artists, some are established, some are community volunteers. So I would say like the local voice is very much embedded in the programme. We've been in kind of working in that distance from afar. So we definitely want to be able to kind of open up the programme to more generally for people to engage with. But it's everything. It's for all those strands that you just spoke for. So yes, it is for the artists, but it's also for the community members. It's for the business owners as well. It's for the volunteers and the community groups. So unfortunately we can't have everyone today with us, But we've been gathering kind of reflections and stories, and if you have the chance to go onto the website, you'll kind of hear some more stories from some of the groups who kind of engage with the town in their particular way. So maybe the heritage group or the history group, the dog walker, you know, like it's like place is complex, isn't it? And we all engage with it in so many ways. So my first instinctive response to your question is absolutely yes, it is that. And I suppose you're getting a particular snapshot of something today.
Can I ask a quick question? I think you initially said you haven't heard anything from the community. Is that right? I'm just wondering where how was that? Or
sorry, I meant just here as we've had 2 reflections so far and your inputs, but as somebody who's been in places where events have gone on and literally the other side of a big wall and it's they're them, we're us.
Well, I can really relate with that. You can imagine being a traveller and bringing out a camera and sticking it in somebody's face and approaching 40. You know, so it was late, you know, and they're like, what's going on with this weird man? So I think it's probably more a time thing. We probably haven't the time to share that with you, but I can really relate with what you're saying. But I think, big time, you know, community, big time, yeah. So I just thought, I think it's probably a time. We haven't enough time, I guess. Probably maybe, you know, if we sat down and had a pint or whatever, we could probably have a chat with that. But I think that's probably it more than anything else. But I think I can relate with you, you know, on what you're saying, like that it's, you know, us and them. Yeah. But like, you have to break down that wall. You know what I mean? Because I'm very shy and very introverted. This is really difficult for me here today, and I'd be drained afterwards. I'd go to bed for a day or two, you know. but like I can, but sometimes you just have to man up. I think like maybe it's probably getting older as well. You kind of become more comfortable with yourself, don't you? You don't care so much, right? You know, and you're in love with the process. You don't care whether it's a good film or a bad film or a good photo or a bad photo. So yeah, I think. But I think what you're talking about, yeah, we have that in Tuam big time. I think, I think so.
That's brilliant to hear.
And I think as well, Patricia might be able to kind of bring some additionality to that as well, because she sees it from a perspective of people who volunteer in the community but maybe don't engage specifically through the arts. Patricia, what do you think?
Yeah, that was an excellent question actually about the community. I'm involved in many groups, you know, I think it just comes from my parents. We were always involved in the community groups, but the groups are involved in Creative Places. The individuals such as poets, writers, they're involved, the business people are involved, and of course the artists are involved. So sporting organisations that wouldn't actually attend any of the Creative Places programmes, who, you know, are more concerned about their sport and all that, they don't get involved. But what's happening is Creative Places, it's intangible, it's intrinsic, it's giving the whole town a lift. Because it's helping all of the groups, the individuals, the artists, it's actually giving the town such a lovely boost that the town is actually a nicer place to live in. Because, as I said before, it's a disadvantaged town, but this is very, very positive. So the sporting groups can benefit from kind of the high morale in the town. You know, we need that at the moment in the current climate. So the sporting groups, even when they attend, say, parades or any spectacles we do on the square, they say, oh, well, that's Creative Places, so it is enhancing the town. So it is a whole community thing. It is helping people individually, but also as a whole community as well. So it is very important, you know, so everyone will benefit from it and are actually.
That's fantastic here. And yeah, thanks for that.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll wait for the mic.
It was just wonderful listening to you. I'm a lecturer in community development. And I suppose what I'd like to know is what were your most successful mechanisms of getting people involved, particularly hard to reach groups? You've mentioned that there has been an increase in equality, and that's wonderful to see in any community. And for a lot of communities, I suppose, you know, I'm really wondering about people who are new to the community, and even people who have been traditionally marginalised, like travellers. What mechanisms were most successful in getting people to participate in the project, which just sounds amazing, wonderful, and well done, everyone involved.
Thank you. There's a couple of different elements, and they happen at different times depending on whether we've been at it removed because of lockdown restrictions or whether we've been able to kind of gather. So there's one particular woman who doesn't want to get involved in anything, but she wants to know what's going on. So we write letters to each other. You know, that's the way we do it. She just wants to be kept in the loop, won't buy the paper, so we write letters. So that's just one element. It's at that very, very kind of rudimental level. And then as we build up the momentum, the idea of our Orista, which kind of is a fireside conversation where we can have important conversations, but in a very informal way. And the idea is bringing people together from Tuam, but also who we think should connect into Tuam and who should be connected via from Tuam, and allowing them the space to talk about what's interested or what's needed or what's vital to them. And then that informs some of the next steps. So, for instance, we had the Orista that will be going out live in the next number of weeks with Owen DeVardoon and Dave and Maggie Farrell on traveller practices and culture. And that's really informed some of the kind of Ignition programme works where you know, we will definitively create a space for traveller artists, for traveller children, the idea of creating that mechanism for them to take the lead and inform us what they want. So we're building partnerships and momentum around certain ideas like that. Linking in with community development organisations on the ground as well has been really important, but also leaning into the expertise of the lived experience. So Patricia's been vital, but also numerous other artists, like Helen's in the audience as well today. So the people that we met in those first 6 weeks before we went into lockdown really became our anchor points at that remote distance. So we've been building upon it, but it's like I said, it's not a journey, and we haven't put the full stop in here. It's the continue to gather the momentum.
You said what's like as a mechanism. I think what's really huge is you're all probably familiar with Werner Herzog, the filmmaker, and he talks about walking. And I think that's huge, is to walk the town. You know, get your camera and walk the town, and people will kind of, you know, they'll talk to you. And you never know, you know, you can have huge conversations. I remember recently I had a conversation with a lady who had MS, and honestly, in 100 or 200 yards, just walking with her, she told me her whole life story. You could turn it into a compelling film, you know. But people will come to you. I don't know what it is, but he talks a lot about that. He said you have to walk. When you walk, the world meets you. So I think when you said mechanism, just walking came into my head. You don't get out there anyway with a camera.
We left it out of the infographic as well, but we went on so many walks in the first 6 weeks that I counted the steps, and that was a way of kind of, you know, again talking to the work, you know, to what Ronnie was saying, like how we kind of talk about the work or how we capture the essence of the being on the ground work. You know, we measured it in cups of tea because that was synonymous with like having conversations and meeting. You know, the steps was the walks, kind of figuring out, you know, which way is up and down in the town, and asking people to bring us on a walk via their town. So like very simple mechanisms, but really important ones as well.
If I could just jump in on that as well, just in terms of talking about, you know, like the mechanisms to capture this stuff, it's like, you know, like for me, what's really interesting about it is, you know, like looking at sort of the evidence of just how rich that one-to-one kind of relationship can be, that sort of invite for the cup of tea that Carolann, you know, like seems to have as her mantra when she's up at the town hall. It's like, give us a call, I'll put the kettle on. And then sort of looking at the different ways in which we can see, you know, like are people, you know, like connecting in on maybe sort of an ad hoc basis, or people, others connecting in quite a rich basis as well, or do some people just want to participate without maybe taking on the responsibility of collaboration? And so I guess that's sort of my job, is to sort of interrogate all those different aspects, and then equally to interrogate, well, what are the barriers for people who don't want to engage, and why was that? And this is all about, I guess, learning for the field, because once we learn and we can be critical about those aspects, that can inform how we adapt for future projects.
Barriers, I suppose I'm trying to get at. And I think, David, you're right. I think the bigger the camera, the more likely people are to come up to you.
Yeah, you need a big
As someone
lens.
who carries a camera.
Need a big lens. You put a big lens. Yeah. Prime lenses don't do so much.
I think we have time for maybe one more question, and just to say that we'll be around afterwards, and you know the sun is shining outside, so don't be shy in terms of coming up and having a conversation. And I see Sharon there, so maybe we have time for two quick ones. Sharon O'Grady, the Arts Officer from Galway County Council, is with us today as well. We'll come to you next. Yeah.
Sorry, thanks, Carolann, and just congratulations to all the panellists as well. I suppose I just wanted to make one or two comments, really, just from, I suppose, my perspective, in that I would have been involved in the conversations from the very early start with Sinead O'Reilly in terms of Tuam. But just a couple of things that may not, what I've seen from, I suppose, the outside looking in, is that this has brought a new narrative to Tuam. So it's a new conversation. Tuam is now Creative Places Tuam. So from the point of view of the locals, I just think it needs more time and space. And having somebody on the ground, like really, really focusing on this kind of for the 2-3 days a week is so imperative, and it really feels that it's embedded in the place. So just to say that I suppose the pandemic was a challenge, and you rose to the challenge in keeping in contact with people and having conversations, but you're back on the ground now, and the difference and the energy is palpable. You're seeing people coming from all the community development groups, people coming in, and everyone engages differently. But the idea that what we're seeing now is, there are artists working, individually working. Obviously, Galway is such a big county. Many of you are working within the city, but living in the county. So that connection is starting to form, and everyone has a different practice. But it just for me, I think that this has so much growth potential there. And what's happening as well in tandem with Creative Places Tuam is a whole master planning for Tuam Town Centre. So I think that Creative Places Tuam has a bigger role to play in that conversation, because you can't be ignored, because the power is starting to, and the momentum is starting to form now. People are having conversations about Tuam as a place, and it's being driven creatively, which I think is really important. And you can have conversations outside of the political and, the religious elements. So, I think Tuam itself, there's people who had been left out because they weren't part of sport, and now they're starting to feel more included, and that sense that it is a very diverse town. But this I feel, the legacy will be there because there are people on the ground who are really passionate about it, not just Carolann, but that there are people there that see the value, and that's what it's brought, a kind of a cohesiveness and a sense of pride as well. So just to congratulate the work that you've done, and to say that it's an amazing project, and we're very proud to be partners in whatever way we can, but not necessarily always there to the momentum is coming from Tuam. So that's really important to say as well. Thank you.
Sharon.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm sorry, my question is coming after Sharon's, because that would have been a beautiful way to finish the session. Sorry, Sharon. Just remember what she said. My question's for Grainne. And I suppose I'm really intrigued by the idea of the impact of a cultural project being measured in Fitbit steps, partially. It's really beautiful. Grainne, the evaluation register framework that you're working on, it sounds like something that would work beyond socially engaged practice. Like, is there a hope that it will be published or shared or...
Yeah, the end goal is that it will be published as a reflective evaluation on Tuam, but then also as a framework to guide people through the processes. My overarching ambition for this, which, if I have time, it will get done, will be to look at this as being a very sort of the evaluative register as some kind of a flexible container, so that you could use it in some ways to interrogate, different genres, I guess, of socially engaged art practice, if we think of that as the umbrella term. But then we also have projects which are more participatory and less collaborative. We also have projects which are more maybe based on the idea of the collective, rather than sort of trying to draw in different community groups into it. So I see this trying to be some kind of a very flexible container, and I'm looking at the moment of sort of, I guess, 5 different headings, I guess, which structure this. One would be the background, organisation and management of these projects. So, as we've seen, we've got Carolann, we've got Sharon, we've got Sinead O'Reilly. All of these conversations define conditions of engagement, and then they also keep defining those conditions of engagement and adapting to the new problems that go along. So then adaptation is sort of that second idea of, right, well, maybe let's use some of the moments that we thought were bits where the project maybe wasn't going the direction we thought, but it's a learning experience. So how do we respond to the sort of those critical moments? And then looking at the idea of relationship building, which is what I began doing with the diagrammatic workshop. And now I want to go back. And so that will essentially be transcribed, and then I'm going to share the analysis with everybody who took part in those workshops. And then from that, go back to it and start delving down into more individual groups and people on their own, so that we can get this sort of nice cross-section, I guess. And that's sort of the idea of distribution of evaluation, so that we can include sort of a cacophony, I guess, of voices as part of this.
So I'd like to thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for being with us here today, but a huge thank you to Patricia, Joanna, David and Grainne for being part of this panel. And I think a well-deserved round of applause. Thank you for sharing your insights with us, your thinking and your reflections. So we're going to move into getting prepped for the workshop stage of the session. I'm going to hand over to Alva Murphy, the Director of Create, to kick that off.
Hi everybody, thanks to our wonderful panel, and also a big shout out to Jennifer Cunningham for her beautiful drawings that were playing there in the background while Carolann was speaking. So we're moving in now to the workshop element of the afternoon, making community, creating place, how communities are supported to creatively make place. So now, anybody who doesn't want to be involved in this, what is going to be an engaged, interactive workshop, please, we won't take offence if you want to move on, but we will try and make a space for maybe an extra 10 or 15 people on the stage. It's probably the most we can take. So if anybody wants to join the workshop, to come to the stage, and we're going to put out some extra tables and chairs. While that's happening, I'm going to just introduce you to the Create team. Anya Crowley is here, Keelan Murray is here, and Vance Lau is also here, as well as Carolann, and we'll be going to take you through the workshop. So just bear with us a couple of minutes while we set up some extra chairs. Nobody opened their boxes yet, please.
Yeah, perfect.
So anyone who's sitting up in the theatre space and would like to join the workshop, we're going to put some extra chairs out. You won't really have a sense of it sitting up there because you need to be in discussion with people here. So. Thanks so much. So we have some extra chairs over here if anybody would like to join the workshop. And there are some empty chairs here as well, so do please come down, take a seat, you're most welcome.
Sorry, apologies.
Okay, we're just going to set up one more little set of chairs here, and then we're going to get cracking. That's plenty then, yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Enough, yeah.
Okay, so last call for anybody who'd like to join the workshop, come onto the stage and grab a seat. You're most welcome. We're going to start now in about another 3 minutes when everyone's settling. Yeah. So we can take this as a short networking opportunity as well before we start. It's nice to hear everyone chatting.
Oh, no, go take it there.
No, there's only 2 people there. Just take it.
It's Maureen, I think.
Oh yeah, okay. Okay, guys, so I think we're going to get started. Okay, so everybody, we heard a wonderful evocation of a developing program, Creative Places Tuam. It started off as a 3-year program. We're delighted to say that we've been able to, we know that we can extend it for a year in the context of having developed on and kept going through the pandemic. So we're really pleased about that. We'll be there, we know, till 2023. So the spirit of this workshop is very much about the collective expertise in the room, whether you're at the very beginning of a place-based program, whether you've done loads of them, whether it's a distant thought in your mind, whether you're thinking you might apply for the next Creative Places round. Everybody's opinion matters here today. And so we want the best of your collective thinking, because what we'd love to do here is to construct a collective compendium of place-based practice. We want to create a context here this afternoon for people to think together and problem solve, because the essence of this workshop is really about the best learning happens when things maybe don't go quite as you've planned. So I'm going to hand over now to Anya Crowley, who's going to take you to the first step. I think the first thing to do is somebody in each group takes the box that's under your table and places it on the table there.
Okay, so guys.
Anya.
Hello? Can you hear me? Okay, guys, so.
From here.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask you that when you open your box, don't go through the box and take everything out, okay? So what we might do, I might just show you with this group's box, okay? Is that when you open it up, you're going to see in the cover, you've got building blocks for place-based practice, okay? So also when you open your box, you're going to see you've got some birls, but you're going to have an envelope which says the building blocks, but also you've got a key card here. So the key card will tell you what each of the images represent, and we've got some blue tack here. But what we're going to ask you to do is that we want you to, I suppose what these are representing some of the features or the building blocks of collaborative practice or place-based practice. So they're not definitive. We're very aware that these are only some of the features. So we're going to ask you to rank them in order of what you feel are the top priorities. Okay, as we said, they're not definitive. Okay, so if you can turn your box over and just take out this piece and leave the rest in the box for now. Sorry. Okay, so guys, you've only got about 3 minutes to do this activity, okay? It's quite quick, it's fast. And maybe use the time to introduce yourselves to one another if you don't know each other already. Okay, guys, make sure you open the white envelope because all of your key cards are in, or your little features are in there.
I was looking for it.